The movie begins in 1995 in Berlin, where a well-dressed man named Michael Berg is preparing breakfast for a young woman named Bridget, who has spent the night with him. The two part awkwardly, and when Michael sees a tram passing outside, he is reminded of his past when he saw a younger version of himself sitting on the tram, and the movie goes back to early 1958 in Neustadt, West Germany on a rainy winter day. An unhappy-looking teenage Michael gets off the tram, but wanders the streets afterward, and eventually stops at the entrance of a nearby apartment building and starts vomiting. Hanna Schmitz, the tram conductor, walked in and saw Michael vomiting. She helped him clean up his vomit with a bucket of water. She saw Michael crying and picked him up, hugged him, and told him that he would be okay. She asked him where he lived and helped him to return home. Michael arrived home with his family and they were all eating, while Michael's mother said that Michael looked sick and needed to see a doctor. The boy said that he didn't need a doctor and that he was fine. Even after refusing all medical treatment, Michael's family still took Michael to the doctor for a checkup. The doctor diagnosed Michael with dengue fever and told them that he should be fully isolated and rest at home for the next 3 months. Michael's mother told Emily to keep her distance from Michael because he was contagious and closed the door. All Michael could do was check for stamps and bide his time. Shortly after he recovers as spring arrives, he returns to the apartment building to deliver a bouquet of flowers to Hanna in her apartment and say thank you. Hanna lets him in and he says that he was sick with dengue fever and on bed rest for 3 months, which is why he came after all this time to thank her. Hanna tells him to put the bouquet of flowers in the sink and tells him that it's good for him that he's cured now. Michael decides and tells her that he will leave now, but Hanna asks him to drive her to work on the tram line and wait for her in the hall while she gets dressed. However, when Hanna catches the young man spying on her while getting dressed, the man runs away in embarrassment. Later, he sees her on the tram but does not approach her. Michael returned to the apartment to apologize a few days later. She arrived to see him going upstairs with a bucket of coal. She looked at Michael and told him that there were 2 more buckets downstairs. Go fill them up and bring them back to her apartment. He carried the buckets of coal back to his apartment with a messy face and full of coal dust. Hanna laughed at him and told him to look at his face in the mirror, and he laughed too. She told Michael not to worry and that she would prepare a bath to clean him up. She told Michael to take off his clothes and get into the tub. Hanna brought a towel for Michael while hiding herself behind the towel. Michael gets up from the tub and she turns him around for him and she covers him with the towel. The camera moves back and it is revealed that Hanna is also naked. She removes the towel and starts kissing Michael's back and asks if this is what he wants. She turned Michael around to face her and tried to kiss him, but he hesitated, so she told him to look at her. She tells him that he is very beautiful and kisses him back. The scene switches back to Michael at his home, who is sitting with his family and eating food while sitting with a smile on his face. Michael's family questions Michael as to why he came home so late that his mother was worried about him. He lies and says that he was confused by the road and got lost. His sister, Emily, accused him of lying. How could someone get lost in his own hometown? Michael's mother shuts him up and says that she believes Michael because he never lies. Michael tries to find an excuse to meet Hanna, so he tells his family that he wants to continue his studies and that he is much better now. After school, he rushes back to Hanna's apartment and they both start taking off their clothes and jumping into bed. After they finish making love, Michael persuades her to tell him her name. Hanna gets a little worried and asks why he wants to know her name. Michael replied that he had come to see her 3 times and what harm could it do if he wanted to know her name. Hanna laughed and admired him, telling him that her name was Hanna. Michael returns to her every day after school. The two began an affair that lasted through the spring and summer when she was off school. Their relationship, all in his apartment, was characterized by him asking her to read the literary works he studied at school. He sold his stamp collection so that they could go on a cycling tour in the countryside. They stopped at a small restaurant to eat. After eating, they went to a chapel where Hanna saw a group of children singing in a choir. She started crying with joy after listening to them. They go swimming in the lake where Hanna asks Michael to join her, but he refuses. He tells her that he is writing a poem about her, and he will recite it when it is finished. Michael looks at the journal where he wrote the poem about Hanna, and the scene cuts back to Michael in the present in 1995, who is also looking at the same journal where he wrote everything about his life with Hanna in a daily sequence. He leaves his place and heads to his car and rushes to reach the court. His assistant helps put on the lawyer's black robe and enters the courtroom. Everyone sits in the room, and the scene returns to 15-year-old Michael, who is studying in class and watching Sophie, his classmate. After school, he goes swimming with his classmates, and he leaves them to meet Hanna. When Hanna is promoted by the tram company to a better position in office work, she becomes restless. When Michael arrives at her apartment for one of their dates, she suddenly snaps at Michael as he tries to read her a novel. She gave Michael a bath and washed him. They made love for the last time, and she then left without telling Michael where she was going. Michael returns to her apartment to find it empty, and he is left alone, heartbroken. This scene returns to President Michael from 1995, who goes out to dinner with his daughter, Julia, who is 21 years old and has just returned from a year in Paris. They both eat and chat with each other. Michael drops off his daughter, and the scene returns to young Michael but 8 years later in 1966. Michael is now 23 years old and studying at Heidelberg Law School. As part of a special seminar taught by Professor Roll, a concentration camp survivor, he observes the trial of several women accused of letting 300 Jewish women die in a burning church while they were SS guards on a death march after the 1944 evacuation of the Auschwitz concentration camp. Michael was stunned to learn that Hanna was one of the defendants. When Hanna testified, unlike her co-defendants, she admitted that she was aware that Auschwitz was an extermination camp. She also admitted that all SS guards, including herself, would randomly select 10 prisoners each. These prisoners would then be executed to make way for new prisoners arriving to avoid overcrowding. Among the audience in the courtroom, Michael later realized Hanna's secret. She was illiterate and had made many choices in her life to hide it. Even her choice to join the SS was made because of her desire to avoid promotion, which meant she would have to reveal her illiteracy. Michael decides to confront Hanna in prison and goes to the prison only to peek in at the last moment and leave the prison yard while Hanna waits in the visiting room, not knowing who will visit her and where they are. Hanna received a life sentence while the other defendants received several years' imprisonment. Hearing this, Michael begins to shed tears and gets back on the train, and the scene switches to an older Michael, but this time in 1976. Michael graduated from law school and gradually became a successful lawyer. He married a young woman named Martha, and together they had a daughter whom they named Julia. Michael was on a train with his daughter Julia, and they were heading back to Neustadt, West Germany, his hometown. He went to his parents' house with little Julia and visited his mother. He told her that he had some bad news to tell her, namely that he and his wife were getting a divorce, and that there was no need to worry about his ex-wife. His mother told him that she was not worried about Gertrude, but she was more worried about him. He went to his old room and opened all his old belongings. He picked up and opened a book that happened to be Homer's The Odyssey. He sat down and read it under the lamplight. After rediscovering his books and notes from his affair with Hanna, he, knowing Hanna's secret of not being able to read, decides to reconnect with her by reading some of the work into a tape recorder. He sat all day and night on a table in bed to record all the books and poems for her. He sent those tapes and another tape recorder to her in prison. He sent her tapes of Chekhov's The Odyssey and The Lady with a Dog, which he would read to her one last time when they fought before Hanna disappeared. It is now 1988. The prison warden writes to Michael to ask for his help in organizing the elderly Hanna after her parole. He tells him that she has been incarcerated for 20 years and she has no family, friends, or place to live. Later, Michael tells Hanna that he has a friend who is a tailor and is willing to offer her a job. He also says that he has found an apartment for Hanna and that it is very small, but Hanna will love it and he thanks him. Hanna asked Michael if he was married. Michael tells her that he is indeed married and has a daughter now. He also tells Hanna that his marriage didn't last long and he is divorced at the moment. He sighed and told her that he would pick her up next week. Michael tells her to take good care of herself and leave the prison. The following week, before Michael comes to pick her up from prison, we see Hanna in her cell collecting some books and putting them on a table and dragging the table in the middle of the cell. She stands on the table and on the books and commits suicide by hanging herself in the cell. When her release time came and Michael came to the prison to pick her up, only to find out that she had committed suicide and left him alone once again. The warden takes Michael to Hanna's cell. Michael sees that Hanna has written a paragraph from the book The Lady with a Dog on a page and taped it to the cell wall. Hanna leaves Michael with the task of giving his life savings to the family of one of the prisoners at Auschwitz. Later, Michael travels to New York to meet Alana. Michael looked around his apartment and Alana arrived and told Michael that she was waiting for him. She asked Michael what brought him to the United States. She asked if he attended the trial 20 years ago. Michael told her that he did attend the trial. He was a law student at the time and he remembered seeing Alana and her mother in court very clearly. Michael went on and told him that he must have heard that Hanna Schmitz had recently died. She committed suicide by hanging herself in her prison cell. She assumes Michael's appearance and asks if Hanna was his friend. He says that she was a friend. He tells Alana that Hanna was illiterate most of her life, which means probably when she was an SS guard. Later, Michael tells her that Hanna left her money and wants you to have it. He reaches into his bag and pulls out a tea tin from Hanna that contains her money. He gives the tin to Alana, and Hanna looks at the tin and smiles, because it reminds her of when she was a child and collected treasures in tea tins. Michael suggests that she donate the money to an organization that encourages adult literacy. Alana kept the tea tin because it resembled the tea tin she had before being sent to the camp. In the present day of 1995, Michael is reunited with his daughter, Julia. He confesses his failures as a father and escorts her to a church he and Hanna had visited during a bike tour nearby 40 years earlier, so they can reminisce about the past. The end.